Now that we've gone through the proof power curve, in this video, I want to show you how to find your proof power. Now, what I'm about to show you will work whether you have a product or you don't have a product. It'll work if you're an affiliate and you're trying to find the best products to promote, the ones that are most likely to convert. It'll also work for emails, really any scenario where you're trying to convince someone to do something, because what we're talking about here is belief. But where I'm going to start in this video, I'm going to start at the most basic level, which is someone who doesn't have a product and they basically just have an idea for the kind of product they might be interested in, the area they want to talk about. So for this example, we're going to start with a simple statement that you might make to a friend based on something that you know. So this is some skill you have, some area of expertise, and we'll start with this simple statement. Hey, Mike, my blood sugar is under control. So imagine you know something about blood sugar, about diabetes, and so this is an area you want to focus your product on, and this is a comment you might make to your friend Mike. Hey Mike, my blood sugar is under control. Now what's going to happen next is he's going to say, what did you do? What did you do? That's how he's going to respond. What did you do? And you're then going to just simply list in the conversation, you would say, well, I stopped drinking soda. I started eating low glycemic foods. I did more weightlifting. I ate more protein at breakfast, and I took a vanadium supplement. Okay. And so you would just start listing these things. So it doesn't matter what topic you pick. Put it as a quote like, I did something or I got some result. Hey, Mike, my blood sugar is under control. And then he will respond, what did you do? And then you simply just list the things. Now, in this video, I'm using Miro. You don't need to use a mind map. You can use a piece of paper and a pen. It really is very simple. So after you say these things, his next response is going to be, how did that help? And he's going to want you to go over each thing. So he's like, you said you stopped drinking soda. Well, how did that help? And then you just respond, well, my blood sugar stopped spiking every hour. He said, well, you mentioned you ate low glycemic foods. How did that help? And you said, well, I wasn't so tired after meals. And you said you did more weightlifting. How did that help? Well, my muscles absorbed more sugar and increased my insulin sensitivity. Hey, you mentioned you ate more protein at breakfast. How did that help? Well, I wasn't starving just a few hours after breakfast. Well, you said a vanadium supplement. How did that help? Well, my blood sugar didn't spike while I was sleeping. So in other words, just a very simple conversation you're having with someone where the first thing you do is tell them what you did to get this result. And then they're going to follow it up with, well, how did that help? They want the specifics. And for each one, you list how the thing above it that you did, how did that help? Now, the next thing he's going to say is prove it. Okay, so this is your skeptical friend, but he represents pretty much every customer out there. Prove it. Prove what you said. And this is where people would be like, well, don't you know I went to college? Well, don't you know my website's been seen on CNN or Forbes? Well, don't you know, I'm an expert. No, he wants something tangible. Now, you remember back to the proof power curve, what he wants to see now to absolutely believe that you're telling the truth, he wants to see a visual proof, a before and after picture or a video. He wants to see something that absolutely proves what you're saying is true. So this is where, we're getting away from traditional copywriting, where it's just a matter of what kind of words can we use and can we use the language of the audience. No, that's not going to work. Our job now is to prove every one of these things with a picture, either a before and after picture, or to prove it with a video. So let's just step through these, some ideas here. So we said, my blood sugar stopped spiking every hour, and he says, prove it. So we show him a picture on our phone, maybe an app. And in the before picture, we say, this was last week. This is what it looked like. Look at my blood sugar spiking every hour as I drank a soda. And now look, the spikes are almost non-existent anymore. So he said, okay, that's cool. That's really neat. And so he believes this thing here. Then he says, you said you weren't so tired after meals. Prove that. Okay, so then you show him another app, and it's, your energy or your steps. And you see before, after lunch, I took hardly any steps. I pretty much was taking a nap every day. And now you can see I'm back at the office and I'm working and I'm getting a lot of things done. Now he says, well, prove the fact that your muscles absorbed more sugar and you had higher insulin. He said, well, look at this. After I ate lunch, this was my blood sugar after an hour. And now this week, the very same meal, it's that much lower. Then he says, well, what about this? You weren't starving after breakfast. Well, look, here's my meal plan. And so he pulls out his app of his meal plan. Look, I used to have breakfast and then 2 snacks before lunch. And now I can just eat a good breakfast and I don't eat any snacks and we get to lunch. And then, lastly, he says, well, what is this vanadium supplement? And you say, well, when I start taking this supplement, usually when I wake up in the morning, my blood sugar will be 146, but now it's only 108 after I take the supplement. And so all these individual things contributed to him getting this result here, but he had to prove it with a picture. Now, here's the secret behind why this works. When you go to do this process, this step right here, the first part probably won't be a challenge because you know the things that you have to do to get this result, especially if you've done it before. Doesn't matter what area it is, you'll know the things that you do to get the result. The second step will be a little bit more challenging because you have to think through, well, exactly, how did this help the overall process of getting the result? But it's this third layer where you have to come up with an actual picture. Now, in this presentation, you see these are just sample images. You've got to present an actual real life image of the result. The secret is that most people today will see results in the form of a screen or an app for so many things. So we have, apps that show calories, we have apps that show meal plans, we have apps that show energy, sleeping, analytics. You think of all the screens that we look at that show us data, show us information. The secret is to use the same screens that your customers are using and seeing every day, and then they can recognize themselves in the before picture. And then when you show them the after, that is the result they want. So if you think about the before as the problem state, where they have a problem, and they're totally aware of this one because this is what they really want to get rid of. And the after state is that fantasy that they have. What would it be like if? And that's your state as the person selling something. You're saying, I've got the after state already. You've got the before state. But if you use the apps and the screens and the things they're already looking at, if you use that so they're familiar with them, it has that much more power. Now, the key here is you're using a photo or a video showing the result. You're not just claiming it in text. And this is even higher. Remember, on the proof curve, it's much higher than even a testimonial or a Facebook, testimonial of someone getting a result. Let me show you an actual example of this so it is extremely clear what I'm talking about here. Let's take this section of the tree. This took a vanadium supplement. My blood sugar didn't spike when I was sleeping. And the before and after sketch we have here is this is a fasting blood sugar number that's too high. It shows diabetes. And this is a number that's high, but it's much better. And the person was taking the supplement. So the inspiration for this screenshot actually comes from a real Amazon product that's selling well over $10,000 a month. And I know you're probably not in this supplement industry, so take the concepts and principles from what I'm about to show you, and you can apply them to really any product. But let me show you this here. So this is actually a review, and it's almost a perfect review, truly. In fact, there's a part of me that thinks, is there any chance this was faked? I don't know, but let me show you how good it is. So the person was talking about how great the supplement is, but the best thing they did in this review is do this picture. But they didn't just do one picture, they actually did two. And this is where it's so perfect. Whoever made this, you almost start to question if this could have been engineered, by someone in the company. And I don't think it was, but I'm just saying it's really well done. So what they did is they first took a picture of the before state. And you'll notice they didn't just, think of all the ways you could have represented this very same data. You could have done a chart. You could have done an Excel sheet. You could have even showed like inside an app. Now, this one's really nice because number one, the photo itself doesn't scream stock photo. It just looks like somebody took, there's some issues with the picture, the lighting. It's kind of fuzzy a little bit, but that's almost perfect because it's real. At least we're going to assume it's real. Okay. So, this right here is the case. If you don't have diabetes, this is the case that blood sugar strips and the pricker for your finger comes in. So they've got that on the table. Everyone that has diabetes and has to prick their finger every morning will know exactly what this is, and so it kind of relates to them. They can. I've seen this before. This has been on my counter. This is the same glucometer that I have right here. You know, a lot of people will recognize this. The number is displayed, and you know this number doesn't mean anything to you unless you have diabetes. But if you have diabetes and this is your morning fasting, it's like already, you know, you're starting the day with this high blood sugar, and it's really frustrating. So this was the before picture, and then they took the after picture, and again, it's almost too perfect because they also in the after picture put a picture of the product that they purchased, and then again here is the new reading of the glucometer and the actual thing here. So everything about this is the perfect before and after. Now again, I'm assuming this is legitimate and the person, you know, this is not being engineered by the company, but just so you can see, because you're going to do a legitimate, real before and after results picture, I want to show you what I'm talking about, because what happens is if I have diabetes and I come to this page on Amazon, as many people have, and I see this picture, I can relate to this scene right here. This is a scene from my life, if you will, because I know what it looks like to have this on the counter. I know what it looks like to see that kind of number and to be disappointed. This is my before state. Now, when I show you the after state, this would be wonderful. You know, I'm thinking that's a fantasy of mine. If I could have numbers that low, that'd be great. And then, of course, they conveniently also put the product right in the background. So you can be like, it was this product that caused these numbers. And again, it's a scene from my future life, the future results I want. So that's what I'm talking about when I say before and after results, and the level that you need to go to establish proof. The key here is to ask yourself, how will I get that picture? Like what will the screen need to be? What should be in the picture? And what does the before state look like? And how do I get that picture? And what is the after state? And that is for each of the items that you put in this tree that got you this top result here. Take one thing that you might be interested in creating an offer around or creating a product around, or if you already have a product, build the tree for that product and get down here to the prove it stage and do a quick doodle, if you will, unless you just have the screens handy. Do a quick doodle of what that screen before should look like and what it should look like after. And if there's a specific app or a web program that you know your customers are looking at and they will recognize that environment and that screen, then what would it look like in the before and what would it look like in the after to prove that you knew how to do this level here and this level here that got the result. And that is the key. That is one of the big pieces of the puzzle, is that you start by asking yourself, how do I get the proof photo? How do I get the before and the after? How do I get the right screen so they'll recognize it, so that they see that my current after is the fantasy that they want, because they have the before and they want what I have now in the after screen.